Hello, students. This week, we're going to continue our discussion of the lighting design process. We've already talked about project planning, programming, schematic design, and design development. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about contract documentation, excuse me, and in the next video, we'll talk about contract administration and evaluation. So just as a reminder, here are some of the interior design project processes, including the AIA project phase names. And in this video, we're talking about Stage 3 contract documents, also called construction documents. So the primary purpose of this contract documents phase is to execute or provide the work for the legally binding contracts that you created in a previous phase. And in this phase, you have two main work products that you end up with. One is the working drawings, which are the graphic representations of your project, in this case, a lighting system. But this applies to larger projects, interior design projects also. And the other work product are called specifications. And specifications are the written description of your project. So we've got graphic versus written. These drawings and specifications are then used for, and they are the basis of, ordering products, installing products, and determining the location of all of your items. On the screen is an example of a working drawing. This is obviously a lighting plan. I like this example better than the one given in your book, which is highly colored and diagrammatic. I don't know any architect or interior designer who prepares their contract documents using color, because this can often your contract documents get reproduced. It may not reproduce correctly in color, and it can fade, etc. And so there's a lot of information that can be lost due to some degradation if you use color. We always use black and white for our contract documents. So the common working drawings or construction drawings for a lighting project are a lighting plan, an electrical plan, a combo of the two, and we'll talk about that later, and a reflected ceiling plan, also abbreviated RCP. On those drawings, you can place lighting schedules to provide additional information. And here's an example, it's the example that I didn't like very much in your book, of a lighting plan. So lighting plans in general, and you should be very familiar with them by this time in your semester, include the locations of luminaires, switches, and control loops. Another name for those is the circuits. The control loops or circuit lines are drawn as curved, and you all know that because you've drawn them for me on your midterm project. You need to make sure to include furniture on your lighting plan. Here are some of the common lighting symbols as given by your textbook. And as you're aware from our other lectures, the symbols used by different firms vary wildly. Some of the standards are shown here, including pendant mounted, track lighting, single switch, etc. But you want to always make sure that anything that is included in your project is included in the legend and is very specifically called out what that is, to eliminate any confusion. So an electrical plan, we haven't talked very much about in this course. Electrical plan sometimes does show the luminaires, sometimes not. But it includes outlets and junction boxes and extra things like telephone and data lines. So in this drawing here, which is a combined lighting and electrical plan, you can see luminaires, like right here. You can see switches. Let's see, where's a switch? Oh, over by the door, of course. You can see outlets. That's right here. Control loops. That's these. They're using a dash dot line type here. And you can see the furniture also. Here's an electrical legend provided in your book for some of the really common electrical symbols. Ones that you should be able to recognize include a duplex receptacle outlet. That is the name for just a regular wall outlet. It's duplex, which means two. It's got two receptacles, two places where you can plug things in. This is the same thing, a duplex outlet with GFI. Here's a telephone outlet. We're putting less and less of those in as everybody's moving to wireless. And anyway, just the same as the lighting legend, any symbols that you include in an electrical plan need to go in your electrical legend. A reflected ceiling plan, or RCP, is a drawing that shows where items are located on the ceiling. It is drawn to display the ceiling as if it's being reflected by a mirror on the floor. And this is just a device that we use or a way to think about how we get to the drawing. RCP is especially useful for complicated ceiling designs. So for residential, that would be with tray ceilings, recessed ceilings, coffered ceilings, anything complex like that. For commercial design, it is lay-in or acoustical grid ceilings. It's very important to draw your RCP. So the RCP includes the locations of luminaires, switches, control loops, just like a lighting plan. Right? It is a lighting plan, basically. It also includes ceiling tiles and any other elements that are on the ceilings. So let's dig a little bit deeper into lighting plans, electrical plans, RCPs, and the difference between all three of these. And it turns out that it's a little flexible which plans you draw and exactly which information you include on each plan. And it depends on the size and scope of your project. For example, here on your screen, you see a small residential project. In this case, this is a combination lighting and electrical plan. And if there's no complicated ceiling, if the ceiling is just a flat ceiling at 8 feet or at 9 feet, this project set may not include an RCP at all. In larger projects, commercial projects, more complex projects, you can have all three of these drawings, and they each show a slightly different set of information. For example, here we show the same corner of a larger or commercial building in three different plan views. One is the reflected ceiling plan up here at the top, one is the lighting plan, and one is the power and communication plan. So in the reflected ceiling plan, we are seeing the ceiling grid for those rooms in which it has a lay-in or acoustical ceiling. And we're seeing this hatch pattern, which is indicating a specific ceiling material. Okay. We're also seeing anything like the HVAC registers, and you can see the lighting fixtures also. Okay. They're a little bit hard to call out because they tend to blend in a little bit with the grid ceiling. Next is a lighting plan, and this is specifically to lay out the lighting and showing the control circuits. Notice that none of the controls are shown on the reflected ceiling plan. So the lighting plan specifically only shows the lighting and the control circuits. So we're not seeing the other items in the ceiling that you need to coordinate with. That would be done in the reflected ceiling plan. And finally, at the bottom here, we have the power and communication plan. This project is complicated enough that you want to pull that information to a separate drawing and not combine it with this lighting plan. So in this class, we haven't talked a lot about acoustical or lay-in ceiling grids. So I wanted to show you a little bit bigger plan here of what that might look like. And so in this drawing, you can see the ceiling plan grids, and you can see that the lights all align within that grid. So they are set into the system, and it's part of one larger ceiling system. So coming back to our overview of working drawings as a whole, one last piece of these are the details. Details are separate drawings. They indicate the exact size and location of elements and communicate this information to the fabricator and the installer, according to your textbook. And basically, they are larger scale information than the plans. So if you've got something that you can't indicate in the plans, you need a closer look at, you might draw a detail. And here's an example here. In this example is an enlarged detail of the bracket mounting for a blackout shade near a window. It's drawn in a section view, and then over here it is keyed to its location on this reflected ceiling plan. So you can see that along this wall here, it's going to be the bracket and the blackout shades. There's a note that calls out those blackout shades. And then here is the detail cutting through this part right here, so we can see all of the information of how to build that particular detail. The other part of our construction or contract documents are the specifications. Specifications are the written descriptions of your building or your project. Okay, they describe the project, the materials, and the processes that are going to be used to build it. Specifications work together, right, with the working drawings. They supplement each other. They go hand in hand. And the specifications add some data that describe the project's scope. They're usually a separate document in 8.5 by 11 format. So they're not the large drawing format. They're more like a business document. Can't even say it. Specifications are part of the legal contract, and they are part of the building permit. So you submit them for your building permit in addition. Now they are not the same. You might be confused because of the word specifications, okay? But they're not the same as the lighting spec sheet, the lighting specification sheet, okay? Two different uses of the same words. In this case, we're talking about a longer document that fully describes a project. The spec sheet for a lighting fixture is going to be a short document, again, giving very detailed and technical additional data about a product. So how are specifications used? They're used by the architect or the designer to clearly spell out and give extra data for the project scope. They're used by the contractor and the subcontractors for estimating the costs of labor and materials, and also for ordering. And finally, they're used by the owner of the project to verify that the materials they particularly wanted for their project are the ones that are provided. So here's a couple of considerations for writing the specifications. First of all, this is the job of the architect or designer. They write the specs. The specifications have to be consistent with the prints. Again, they go together. All right, they're both describing the same project. Specifications often list the exact materials required for a project, but also some accepted alternates, okay, if those materials are not available. Um, Within the specifications, the architect or designer will reference some manufacturer's data. You might find some of this information in the suite's catalogs or Underwriters Laboratory standards. And finally, the format of specifications varies, and we're going to talk about that in the next slide. There are some AIA standard forms, and if you've heard of the CSI master format system, that's something that's used to help organize. It's an organization method for the product information included in the specifications. So let's talk about that format and some common types or formats of specifications. Specifications can be just a single page for a really small project, or hundreds of pages for large projects. I used to be in a design firm that did schools, all right, and school campus projects. And for a school campus project, the specifications were three volumes this big. So basically this much printed out information, and it was just enormous. It was a huge design job to create these. So you can have a minimum specification, which is a very simple statement for a minor job. You can have an outline specification, and this is probably the format of most residential jobs if it was a full home residence, all right, not just a small like one room remodel. And so an outline specification will have short statements about the work and about each of the materials. There is one format that's called description of materials, and it's very specific. That's the name of a form that's used by some government housing agencies. And finally, you can have a set of specifications called a complete set of specifications. It'll follow that CSI master format outline, and it will be broken into divisions. And that will be for your larger and commercial projects, including that school campus project I was just talking about. All right, so in this video, we covered the contract document phase of a design project. We talked about the working documents, which are the drawing sets. And we also covered specifications, what they are and how they're used. In the next video, we'll talk about the next phase, which is when the construction actually starts. Thanks, everyone.